Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In the name of God, I will start this lesson delivered to the students of semester 4, the Faculty of Languages, Arts, and Humanities. So the title of the work is The Perils of Certain English Prisoners. The novella was co-authored by Charles Dickens and Wilkie Collins. It is very important, ladies and gentlemen, to mention the historical context and in which the novella was written. It means, what was the overall objective of the novella? Why did Charles Dickens and Wilkie Collins write the novella? Especially that the novella was closely related to the context, to the historical context in which it was written. Second, I'm going to speak about class consciousness, one of the pillars of realism, especially in Charles Dickens's writings, is actually realism and referring especially to the problem of class in the English society. Next, I'm going to talk about cultural imperialism. It's important to mention cultural imperialism here, especially that you, ladies and gentlemen, are studying Introduction to Cultural Studies, so they will be this will be of help to you in terms of enriching your understanding of the module. Next, we are going to see shift in perspective, and it's very important to talk about the shift in perspective, especially when the narrator changed his mind with regard to a lot of issues at stake in his society. Now, the historical background goes as far back as the 1857, when there was the mutiny in India, because it was colonized by the British, and the British called it mutiny, but it is actually also, it could actually be called resistance, because at the time they didn't accept the colonial oppression. Many military officers were killed, men, women, and children, during the mutiny, or what they call the mutiny. So it was decided by the British government to sanction people to join the army. So yes, indeed, they tried to convince them to join the army, but people had their grievances. There were many things that they did not accept. The two major problems that they did not accept were, first, class stratification, means the differences in terms of class, that gap between the rich and the poor. And then, the unjust ranking in the army, means people could be promoted, could become officers in the army, especially if they were educated, but other people who were not educated, and lower class people who did not have a chance to be educated, were not able to be promoted. So they said, why join the army? Second, the major argument of the lower class people was that there were, issues at stake in the English society. Why didn't the, English government solve the problems of, class stratification and many other issues in society, instead of just going and then colonize another country? So this shows, the novella's underlying premise. The overall objective of the novella was to change the lower class citizens' views on imperialism and their dissatisfaction with class problems, and especially with the army system. Next, the next point is so here in the novella, class differences and social mobility are replaced by imperialist intentions to fight a common enemy. Please Forget about class. That was the message. Forget about class. Forget about any issue you complain about, and please join the army. Sacrifice yourselves for the sake of, an imperialist, Britain. So then discrimination against the uneducated and the poor is replaced by racist discrimination against the non-English. This takes us, ladies and gentlemen, to the next point, which is, now, was there, and then here I insist on the idea of change. Change is important. This is change. This was trying to change people's, opinions, especially lower class people. Now, I'm going to focus on 3 points. In the novella, there was an attempt to change people's opinion about the issue of class. There was also, or there is also, an attempt to change people's dissatisfaction with the unjust army system. But in the end, there is no change toward the other, the non-English, the colonized, means, represented in the novella by the people on the island, or the non-English in general. So here, speaking about this, we will continue, ladies and gentlemen, to start talking about the idea of class consciousness in the novella. First of all, let's talk. There are a number of definitions of the concept of or the novella as a genre, which actually is stands between the novel and the short story. But the most important thing here is is the fact that the novella is not complex in themes, which means the novella was meant to send a clear message to the lower class people. It's a very simple thing, very simple. The themes were very simple, so they were trying to be direct in terms of message. And then it is generally, and pay attention to this, ladies and gentlemen, it is generally concerned with personal and emotional development. And I was talking at the beginning about change. Okay, so the narrator is from the lower class, and it's important, the lower class. And this narrator went through some hardship when he was a child, which means that the novella is trying to make the lower class identify with the narrator. And so, trying to identify with the narrator in here. So, this identification is very, very important because it sends a direct message, the novella sends a direct message to the lower class people. And the language, the simplicity of the message is very important here. So the simplicity, even I would call that the simplicity of the mind of the narrator himself. Right. So here, there is some kind of identification, which means that would lead to change that I talked to the change that I talked about at the beginning. The narrator is uneducated, with ordinary and clear thoughts, direct message. We can read the novella then through the perspective of the narrator, because the novella is written in the first person narrator's point of view. So we get to know his character more deeply, and his suffering, inferiority complex, and his flaws. That means, and this is related, of course, to realism, realistic mode, which is the character is not perfect. This is important, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Since we have flaws in here, and you might follow the cursor. Since we have flaws, right? Then the narrator is unidealized. He is not idealized. His personality is not romanticized. Okay. So that's one element of realism. And then that means there is room for error and possibility for change. Or, for the character to improve. Okay. All right. Now, since there is that possibility for change, then we will go through some passages in the novella that speak about it. Some passages are key passages, and they will help us with the understanding of the general understanding of the novella. So, ladies and gentlemen, now let's just go to it now. Here, I would like you please to pay attention to this. I had a hard life, and the life of the English on the island seemed too easy and too gay to please me. Here you are. I thought to myself, good scholars and good livers. So people who were educated, he felt actually that inferiority towards the educated people, and then able to read what you like, and able to write what you like. So here you see, able to eat and drink what you like, because they were taking advantage of the island that they colonized, and spend what you like, and do what you like, and much you care for a poor, ignorant private in the Royal Marines. Yes, it's hard too. I think that you should have all the half pants, means you benefit from the best of things. But I can't benefit from it. I can't get anything from it. And I all the kicks. So you get the best and I get the worst. And you all the smooth and I all the rough. You all the oil and I all the vinegar. And listen here, ladies and gentlemen, and I've highlighted this. It was as envious a thing to think as might be, let alone it's being nonsensical, which means illogical, unreasonable, but I thought it. And look, he's using the simple past here, which means the narrator now is more mature than the past. In the past, he used to, be jealous, feel jealous toward the upper class people, to feel jealous toward the higher ranking officers. Let's just go, please follow this cursor, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to the comments in here. The narrator had undergone difficulties before arriving as a private. Private means the lowest in military rank, right? On the island. Now, he said, I had a hard life. What does it mean? In the narrative, it's he said that he was an abandoned child, beaten and starved by his father, worked at an early age, deprived of education. Child labor at the time deprived a lot of children of their education. So he expressed his dissatisfaction with the military system as he wishes to be officer, not a private. A private is the lowest in rank. Why can't be an officer? Because you are educated. So what? Then, as a narrator, not as a character, right? He expresses his regret about his past, nonsensical and reasonable hatred toward the upper class English and the higher ranking officers. This is what he expresses, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm going to talk to you next about, the phase, the before and the after. I'm going to talk about the before and the after. What I mean by this, before being convinced that, he should not feel that hatred, that antagonism, resentment toward the upper class and upper class people and higher ranking officers. And the after, the change that happened. When did it change? And I'm going to talk about that later. Now, look at this again here, ladies and gentlemen. If you look at the, at the passage in here from pages 12 and 13, they were a good-looking set of people on the whole. He was talking about the upper class people, but I didn't like them. I was out of sorts in conversation with Shaka. I found fault with all of them. I said of Mrs. Vinning, she was proud. He was talking about some kind of snobism in the upper class society. Of Mrs. Fisher, she was a delicate little baby fool. What did I think of this one? why he was a fine gentleman. What did I think of that one? Why she was a fine lady. What could you expect them to be? I asked Chalker, nursed in that climate, because they were taken, he thought he was a little bit jealous and envious because they were taken advantage of the island. This is, of course, ladies and gentlemen, before the change. With the great, with the tropical night shining for them, musical instruments playing to them. And he's talking here about the natives, you know, the Sambos living on the island, being at the service of these people. Great trees bending over them. You know, people, you know, the English colonizers colonizing nature. And I'm going to talk about this idea of nature later. Soft lamps lighting them, fireflies sparkling in among them, bright flowers and birds brought into existence to please their eyes, delicious drinks to be had for the pouring out, delicious fruits to be got for the picking, and everyone dancing and murmuring happily in the scented air, with the sea breaking low and the reef for a pleasant chorus. On the left, ladies and gentlemen, I just would like to show you some of the you know, points mentioned here, you know, that you need to highlight. I'm pointing to the narrator's antagonism toward upper class subjects, and it was shown in the highlighted part section in which he said, "But I didn't like them." Then, for him, they took advantage of the island that they colonized. The natives and the reaches, means the trees, what they ate there, you know, the trees, you know, the breeze, everything that was beautiful there, and the reaches thinks that they ate the food and you know, you know, that they got from the nature of the island are at their service. Okay. Now, I'm going to go to another point here, which is cultural imperialism. And it's very important. I'm going to point out to some key elements related to imperialism. Well, it is very important, ladies and gentlemen, to point to some of the binaries, you know, in the passage here. The first one has to do with class and racial divisions on the island. And here I'm talking again about the time before the change happened. Now, racial divisions on the island: rich, poor, English, and other, means the non-English. Culture and nature. I'm talking about the culture of England brought to the nature of the island in the South American, you know, part, that South American part of the world, off the coast of the Mosquito Coast. Now, look at this here. It was a pretty place, beautiful indeed, exotic place, so beautiful. In all, and I underline the word, its arrangements, partly South American and partly English. And I'm talking here about the binary, ladies and gentlemen, the binary, the frontiers between the two. There was a part that was South American and the other part that was English. And very agreeable to look at on that account, being like a bit of home that had got shipped off and had floated away to that spot. Means it, you know, a little England was brought to that spot of the world, accommodating itself to circumstances as it drifted along. The huts of the Sambos. Huts means, you know, they lived in the huts, the Sambos. Natural place, like huts represented a natural, you know, place of dwelling. To the number of 520, perhaps, were down by the beach. The huts were by the beach, and poor condition, by the way. Huts express the poor condition of the Sambos. To the left of the anchorage. On the right, you know, the binary of left, and then you have the right now. Okay? On the right was a sort of barrack with a South American flag and the Union Jack, means two flags, South American and then the British flag of the United Kingdom. Flying from the same staff, where the English, look at this, ladies and gentlemen, where the English colony could all come together. If they saw occasion, everybody would come there. It was a walled, look at the wall here. And the wall here, ladies and gentlemen, could be expressed by this binary here, wall, basically, physically, could express this binary that you can see here. It was a walled square of building with a sort of pleasure ground inside. And inside that again, a sunken block like a powder magazine with a little square trench around it and steps down the door, etc., etc. Now, I'll go to the next page. Now here, they brought a little England there, okay? And I'm going to explain, some of the concepts that are, that have to do with imperialism here, ladies and gentlemen. The first concept is cultural imperialism, okay? And tabula rasa, that I will explain later, and a miniature image of England. Let me explain this, ladies and gentlemen. What is cultural imperialism? Means you go to a place and then you colonize it, right? Culturally, you bring your culture there. It's like a tabula rasa. Tabula rasa is actually a concept related to it. And I will explain that, ladies and gentlemen. Tabula rasa, or rasa, R-A-S-A, is actually you bring your culture to that part of the world, and then you have that miniature, and this is the word, ladies and gentlemen, miniature image of England is there. What is meant by tabula rasa and the miniature image of England, ladies and gentlemen? Look at that here. Look at this passage. It will be understood here. We thank the young lady. It was Miss Marion that the narrator fell in love with, but because she was from the upper class, it is not possible that she could love him too, right? We thank the young lady, who is Miss Marion, and said we didn't wish to be troublesome, but she said it could be no trouble to an English soldier's daughter, to show English soldiers how their countrymen and countrywomen fared. Look at this. So far away from England, and consequently we saluted again and went in. They had access, the narrator, Gil Davis, who was a private, with his partner, Chalker, they had access into that small world. And if you remember, ladies and gentlemen, the huts where the Sambos, the natives, lived in poor condition. And now there is something different that you can see here, which is actually the little world, the little England, the miniature image of England they brought to the island. Then as we stood in the shade, she showed us, as being affable as beautiful, how the different families lived in their separate houses, and how there was a general house of 4 stores. Look at this. Stores. And a general reading room. Small England in there. They brought it. Their cultural aspects were brought to the island. Tabula rasa means a small, it actually means, the mind, the consciousness of the child that needs to be tamed, and then he's educated, and they are educating him. But this space itself is representative of that consciousness. They are adding the aspects of the British culture to that place that is considered empty. Tabula rasa, in brief, ladies and gentlemen, is an empty place. It's like a slate, that we use to write our answers to our teachers, those white slates, and then we fill them, we just write things on them, we inscribe things on them. And this is the island. Island is considered empty, but we can bring our culture. We can bring our culture to it. How the different families lived in their separate houses, and how there was a general house for stores, and a general reading room, and a general room for music and dancing. And of course, music, English music, music dance, Western dance, whatever. And the room for church, religious aspect, which is cultural too. And how there were houses on the rising ground called the Signal Hill, where they lived in the hot weather. So here, ladies and gentlemen, they're bringing their small England. It's a miniature image of England brought there to that island. Now, it's very important, ladies and gentlemen, to pay attention now. We talked about that. That's the before. when he was talking about England and stuff, he was talking about that separation that was happening. That was related to two things: that he was somehow, critical of colonialism, when he was saying the English, if whenever they had a chance, they could come there. Whenever they had a chance, they could come and colonize the island. Second, upper class, lower class differences. Third, critical of the army. Now we will see this shift in perspective. This is, I was talking about the before. Let's talk about the after, ladies and gentlemen, that shift in perspective, and let's talk about it. Now, Gill's change of attitude, shift in perspective, rejecting his English identity. If we go to, page 34, where Miss Marion asked him the question, especially when they were trying to escape the pirates, as prisoners, escape from the grip of the pirates, who represent a danger. Now here, she asks him the question: how will you be, my good Davis, to see England again? I have another confession to make. He's talking here. That will appear singular. When she said these words, something rose in my throat. He's being very sentimental here. And the stars I looked away at seemed to break into sparkles that fell down my face and burned it. England is not much to me, miss, except a name. This is a very good passage. Very, very good passage. Very interesting and very important passage. England is not much to me, miss, except a name. And this is the line that divides between the before of the narrator and the after. His hatred for England, his envy of the upper class people, and then the change of attitude after, when he starts to love England, and then that he wants to sacrifice now himself for the imperialist England or Britain. Okay. Also true, an Englishman should not say that. Are you not well tonight, Davis? Very kindly and with a quick change. Quite well, miss. Are you sure? Your voice sounds altered in my hearing. No, miss, I am a stronger man than ever, but England is nothing to me. Okay. Miss Marion sat silent for a long while, and I believed she had done speaking to me for one time. However, she had not. She did not stop talking to me. For by and by, she said in a distinct, clear voice, clear, and underline clear, because this is the message of Charles Dickens and Wilkie Collins. No good friend. It's as though they were talking to the lower class people in England to join the army. No good friend. You must not say that England is nothing to you. It is to be much to you, yet everything to you. What you have to take back to England. Now, to take back to England, here, it's of course South America. But if you come back from India at the time, this is what you have to take back to you. The good name you have earned here, and the gratitude and attachment and respect you have won here. So this is actually the message of Charles Dickens and Wilkie Collins, ladies and gentlemen. This was the message. And then and you have to make some good English girl very happy and proud by marrying her. And I shall one day see her, I hope, and make her happier and prouder still by telling her what noble services, services as a private in the army. So joining the army is an honorable thing. That's social mobility. Don't think about becoming an officer, but the honor is more than enough for you. Her husbands were in South America, and in reality that was actually, it should be India at the time. She spoke these America, and what a noble friend he was to me there, because he helped her a lot. Though she spoke these kind words, pay attention to this, in a cheering manner, she spoke them compassionately. And this is the clear voice of Charles Dickens and Wilkie Collins. This is a compassionate, because, you know, Charles Dickens especially was very angry, because of what happened in India at the time, because of the mutiny. They called it mutiny. Compassionately, I said nothing. It will appear to be another strange confession that I placed to and fro. I paced to and fro within calm all that night. He regretted, a most unhappy man, reproaching myself. And here the message is, you should reproach yourself, dear lower class people in England who are complaining about the class issues. Reproaching myself all that night long, all the night long. You are as ignorant as any man alive. You as obscure as any man alive. You as poor as any man alive. You are no better than the mud under your foot. That was the way in which I went on against myself until the morning. With the day came the day's labor, and then so on and so forth. So here, shift in perspective. It's a radical change. Shift. No, it's a big change in the opinion of the narrator. Now, here, I'm going to talk about two passages, ladies and gentlemen, that show that yes, there was change in terms of class, you know, stratification, you know, issue with class and then class consciousness. There was change with regard to the grievances he was expressing toward the upper class, you know, I'm sorry, that hierarchy in the army and the promotion he could not get as a private, okay, all right, here. And then we would now check let's just go, ladies and gentlemen, to this passage, and then we will see the two changes happening with regard to class consciousness, right, and grievance toward the army, but not racism. So we could notice, ladies and gentlemen, here that, you know, there is you know, some kind of racism toward the non-English other. If you look at this here, we had come down to the beach to be friendly with the boat's crew who were camped and hutted there, and we're approaching towards their quarters over the sand. And here is one of the sambos. When Christian George King comes up from the landing place at a wolf's trot, crying, right? Wolf's trot, like describing him like a wolf, like an animal here, right? This is kind of dehumanizing him, right? Turning him into an inhuman, right? You know, creature, or, you know, an animal. Yep, Jir, and then here it means yep, so Jir means, and then which was that Sambo pilot's barbarous way of saying hello, soldier. So here, this is kind of creolized English used by the Sambo, and then it is being criticized and attacked in a racist manner by the narrator. I have stated myself to be a man of no learning, right? Lower class. And if I entertain my prejudices, I hope allowance may be made. I will now confess to one. It may be a right one, or it may be a wrong one. But I never did like natives, except in the form of oysters. This is another way of objectifying, dehumanizing, you know, turning the natives into animals, the Sambos, even though these people were at their services. And we could notice now here that, you know, Christian George King, right, throughout the, you know, he's actually representative of the other, of the native other. And throughout the novella, he has been under attack by the narrator. At some point, he liked him because he was at the service of the others. He was a devotee. He was serving, the English people, especially the ladies and the children. So he was, because he was at their service, he was felt as, he was like a person who's very liked by them. He's a mimic man because he mimics their language and stuff. But later, he was turned into a treacherous person. So you can see here the misrepresentation of the other here as treacherous. And then this can take us back again to the context in which the novella was written. And then you have that racism against the Indian other, or the other of the English. So here, this was on page 9, and Christian George King's realized incorrect English being criticized and attacked. The narrator's racist attitudes towards the others is my conclusion. Next, ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the final pages. Here, the last page. And I was recommended for promotion, and of course, he was offered not just promotion, but he was offered money by Carter, the lieutenant. He was offered money by the officer Carter after having helped Miss Marion, but he did not accept, the amount of money to become, richer and then to improve his social status. He didn't want to become rich. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, the message that, the novella is trying to convey to the lower class people. Don't try to look for money. Don't try to improve your social status. Don't complain about poverty or in other class differences. Please, fight for England. Try to sacrifice yourself for the sake of your country. I was recommended for promotion, and everything was done to reward me that could be done. But my total want of learning stood in my way, and I found myself so completely out of the road to it, and I could not conquer any learning, though I tried. I was long in the service, and I respected it, and was respected in it. And the service is dear to me at this present hour, which means it's enough for me. I don't need promotion. I don't need money to improve my social status. I'm fine. Right? So this is how actually the narrator, ended and finished his, ended his story. He's fine, but he still lives in the house of Miss Marion. So that's why, she found him in a hospital, and when she got married to Carter, and she, even though he still calls her, my lady, who is writing his narrative. But he lives in her house. He still lives in her house under her, guardianship. She's taking care of him. So that change did not happen, actually, of class differences, between them. He's still poor. He's still, under her guardianship with Mr. Carter. Second, he did not accept, he did not care about promotion. But in the end, narrator refused money and promotion because his attempt at learning failed. Christian George King, who is representative of the untrustworthy other, is killed. So here, killing him is very significant, because that was one of the things that Charles Dickens said, that he wanted to join the army and become, a commissioner whatsoever, an officer, and go kill those Indians. All right. Next, end of class army promotion related conflicts against a common enemy, who is the native. So in brief, ladies and gentlemen, this is, the overall objective of the novella, trying to change people's opinion about, the lower class people's opinion about, the class stratification. Change your opinion, forget about your complaints and grievances. Second, grievances with regard to being promoted in the army or staying as a private. It is just an honor for you to be, it is an honor for you to be given this opportunity to join the army and become an honorable, soldier. change from an incognito, somebody that nobody in the English society knows, to somebody who is recognized for his services. But don't forget that we will do this for the sake of fighting against one enemy. It's the colonized subject. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention.